We're going to be solving inequalities today. We introduced them last time and kind of talked about the basics of inequalities, and today we're going to be solving. So recall from last lesson that inequalities have infinite solutions. Okay, so that means like unlimited. We could sit and list them forever. Therefore, to show all of the solutions, all of them, we have to solve and then graph, because remember on the number line you can graph the inequality, and that shows us where all of the solutions are. Now, before graphing, like I said, we have to solve the inequality, which is what we're doing. Now, when we're solving, we're finding the boundary between the solutions and the non-solutions, which kind of sounds weird, but in other words, the number that we find after solving, so you're going to solve this just like we did equations and get like x on one side and maybe like 3 on the other side. That number that sits on the other side after we solve is the number that separates the answers from the non-answers. Now, this number is, I want you to know, not always a solution. Okay, and I'll show you what that means on example 1. So the directions say show all solutions to inequalities by graphing on the number line. So you're going to solve this exactly like you would if it was an equal sign instead of being a less than sign. So don't let that throw you off. I just need to get x by itself. So I'm adding 6. I'm going to do the opposite and subtract 6. And that's going to give me x is less than 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Okay, so that's what they want you to write on the solve line. Now, this is the number that I'm talking about when I say that this is the number that's like the boundary between the solutions and the non-solutions. This separates where the answers are and where the answers are not on the number line. Because if I think about this, x, those represent the answers. That's any number that's smaller than negative 4. So I can plug in any number smaller than negative 4 into this original inequality, and it would make this true. So if I graph this to show the answers, let me get negative 4 on here. Let's put few other numbers in for reference. Okay, so we'll just get 0 and then like 2 numbers smaller, negative 5 and negative 6. I know that from last time, this needs to be an open circle, meaning negative 4 does not work. That's not a solution. So that's what I'm saying, that this number, when I solve, this is an equation, it would be x equals negative 4, and negative 4 would be the only answer. But in an inequality, this number is just like the separation number, and it's not always an answer. Like I can't plug negative 4 in. If that or equal is not there, this number does not work in your inequality. Okay, but I can show where the numbers are that work. If all the numbers less than negative 4, so that'd be like negative 5, negative 6, so on and so forth, and I would shade to the left. Okay, so again, this number separates the answers from the non-answers. Answers are to the left of it, non-answers are to the right of it. Okay, so number 2, same thing, I just want to get x by itself. So if you need to draw the little line, hopefully you're getting better at not drawing that. You can just see each side, but if you need to draw it, draw it. So let's see, I'm multiplying x by 8, so I need to divide by 8 on both sides. And that would leave me with x is greater than or equal to negative 40 divided by 8 is negative 5. So that's my answer. And if I graph this, so that or equal to underneath, we learned last time that that means negative 5 is a solution this time, so I put a closed circle to show that it works. And if I get some other numbers on there, let's just get 0 on there, negative 6 would be smaller. Whoa, that was not to scale. But I want all the numbers bigger than negative 5. Those are all the numbers that I can plug in for x that make this work. So that would be going this way towards 0. All right, number 3. So same thing, I can draw the line. I want to divide by negative 2 to get x alone. Now, let's see, a lot of us might put this. 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. Now, this one is special, so I'm going to put a star by it. Here's why. So Doesn't seem that out of the ordinary right now, but let's check what I'm saying the answers are. I'm saying that x, the numbers that work, are smaller than or equal to -7. Okay, so if I'm right, then, okay, -8 is smaller than -7. Let's see if that works. So if I plug in -8 where x is, and I do -2 times -8, that would give me +16. Now, I don't know about you, but look at the statement I wrote. I don't agree with that. 16 is not smaller than or equal to 14. Okay, that did not work. Therefore, something special happens on this problem. That's why I've starred it. If you, and maybe you remember this, sometimes you have to flip the sign to accurately represent where the answers are when you're solving an inequality. If you get a situation like this, okay, so when you're solving, and if you multiply or divide, in this case I divided, both sides of the inequality, okay, so it's what you're doing to both sides. See in pink here, I divided both sides by -2 to solve. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, you have to flip the sign around just to show where all the solutions are. So it's not less than or equal to, it's actually numbers greater than or equal to -7 that work. So numbers bigger than -7 are the ones that you can plug in. The negative just like changes the sign of what was on the other side, which messes with where the solutions lie. Okay, so you've got to be really careful and watch out for that. Really, other than that one thing, solving an inequality is the exact same thing as solving an equation. Okay, so to represent it on the number line, it'd be a closed circle. -7 worked either way because it's or equal to, and all the numbers bigger than -7 work. And test yourself. So, okay, I'm saying numbers bigger than -7. Well, let's try +2. If I plug that in, obviously I don't need to type that in my calculator, but I'm saying -4 is smaller than or equal to 14. And yeah, that worked. Okay, so you've got to be really, really careful. And from now on, I have to think about that multiply or divide thing by a negative when I'm solving, so I do not forget to flip the sign. All right, I want you guys to try number 4. I'll check it tomorrow in class. Number 5 is a little bit trickier, so I'm going to do this one. I'll draw my line. So I know I need to subtract the 8 first. Okay, so then I've got this x divided by 3 with a negative out in front of it. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm going to take the negative and I'm going to put it down there with the 3. That was an arrow. That looked weird. I don't want a negative just floating out front, so you can always do that. Just take the negative and put it out front. So I constantly am thinking, do I need to flip the sign? Well, no. I just subtracted 8 on both sides. I didn't multiply or divide by a negative, so I'm good. To get x alone from here, so this is now a 2-step equation. I need to get rid of the -3, so I know I'm dividing by it, so I'm going to multiply by -3 to cancel that out. And then little red flag should go off, so look what I did in pink to both sides. Both sides. I multiplied by a negative number. So that means I need to flip this sign around if I want to accurately show where the answers are. And then -6 times -3, +18 would be that like boundary or like separation number. So that's my answer. And if I graphed it to show on the number line, where the answers were, let's see, that would be a closed circle. Okay, make sure you just get at least a couple other numbers on there so you know, like, okay, bigger numbers go to the right, smaller go to the left. Whether it's 0 or anything else, I do want you to put other numbers on the number line, not just the 1. Okay, all the numbers smaller than 18 work here. So I'm going to shade to the left. Okay, number 16. So move what's not connected to the x first, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And I've got 12 is less than -2x. Don't forget that -2. And then I'm going to divide both sides by a negative. Okay, so here it is again. I have to flip the sign because I divided by a negative. So instead of it being a less than, it's now a greater than. and I got negative 6 on the other side. So again, that negative, like doing that thing, multiplying and dividing by a negative, just messes with the sign of the separation number. And so that totally changes where the answers lie. So you've got to flip the sign. So I could write it with the negative 6 on the left, the x on the right. It doesn't matter. I just need to really think about what I'm looking at so I can shade in the right direction. So I know it's going to be an open circle because I don't have that or equal to. Didn't mean to write that. Don't write that on your paper. Now, answers, let's see. Negative 6 is bigger. The mouth is opening towards negative 6. So I need numbers that are smaller than negative 6. And if it helps you to flip this around and write the x on the left, do that. Mouth opens towards negative 6, opens towards negative 6 here. So I know I want numbers smaller than negative 6, so that would be negative 7 and smaller. Okay, on the back. So these, yay, are a little bit more difficult, but we got it as long as we think about when to flip the sign. So on number 7, if I'm dividing everything by 6, I need to multiply everything by 6. Got to start there. Now it's just a two-step equation, so I'm going to subtract 12. And then I'm going to divide by 5. Didn't multiply or divide both sides by a negative, so I'm good to leave the sign. X is greater than 6. All the numbers bigger than 6. So I know this is going to be an open circle. 6 is not an answer. And I want all the numbers bigger than 6. So I'm going to show that by doing an arrow to the right. All right, I want you guys to do number 8, and I'm going to start it with you, or I'm at least going to point out what are you distributing to start. You're distributing a negative 2. So be really careful. Bring this 5 down. Minus 2x. Watch yourself right here. Negative 2 times negative 10. Hopefully you're listening to what I'm saying, so you catch on to this, but you need to finish it. Okay, so try doing that, and I'll check that one as well tomorrow. Let me go ahead and finish up the 2 at the bottom. So number 9 is also started by distributing. Now, fractions. You have to use the little basic calculators on this next test. I hate to tell you. So you will not have the fraction button. So if you have to multiply 2/3 times 9, do it off to the side. And that would be 18 over 3. 18 divided by 3 is just 6x. Same thing. You got to do 2/3 times 15. Do 15 over 1. That would be 30 divided by 3, which is just 10. Bring the rest down. You should be able to do that without a calculator, or like at least a calculator that has a fraction button. Now I'm going to combine the x's. They're on the same side, so don't do the opposite and like subtract x. You just add them. 6 plus 1, so that's 7x minus 10. Then I'm going to add 10 to both sides. I just got a two-step equation now. And then divide by 7. I didn't multiply or divide both sides by a negative, so I'm good to just leave the sign as is. If it helps you to flip this around and put x on the left, 2 on the right, do that. The mouth was opening towards x, so it needs to open towards x if I flip it around. And maybe that will help you like figure out where your answers are. This one's going to be a closed circle, so that means 2 is a solution. Okay, and I want all the numbers bigger than 2. Those are the numbers that work when I plug in for this inequality. So that's going to be, whoa, if I didn't mess up my number line. Just seeing if you're paying attention, not 4. Oh my goodness. That should be a 1. Woo, struggling. 3 to the right, 1 to the left, smaller numbers. To the right, obviously. Okay, so I want to shade right still. All right, last problem here, people. So let's see. I have distributing again on this one. This is kind of like number 8 that you did on your own. Okay, so distribute negative 3. And that's going to give me negative 6x. Watch your sign. Negative 3 times positive 7 is negative 21. When I go to combine these x's, they're on the same side, so just do it like it looks. So 5 minus 6 is negative 1x. Then I'm going to add 21. And then I've got negative 1x on the right and 101 on the left. So divide by negative 1, and hopefully a little red flag goes off that I divided both sides by a negative 1. So I have to change this sign around. Turn it the other way. Changing the sign of the number that's on the other side totally changes where the solutions are, so you have to flip this sign to represent your answer correctly. Okay, so on the number line, okay, 0 is going to be to the right there. This is a really small negative number. Okay, so I'll just throw another couple other numbers on the number line there. So it's an open circle. I don't want to include negative 101. And again, if it helps you to flip it around, mouth open towards negative 101. So if I flip it around, same thing needs to happen. I need all the numbers smaller than negative 101. So it would be everything to the left.